Hi, my name is Nell Harris, and I'm an artist who has just recently become a published author and illustrator. My first book, My Brain is a Race Car, is a book that I wrote about understanding and accommodating for a neurodivergent brain. When I published it, I got such amazing feedback that it inspired me to write my second book, My Body Has a Bubble, which is a book about understanding, protecting, and respecting personal space. Among all the wonderful words and feedback I have received over these months, one sentence really jumps out at me. When I tell people that I am an author illustrator, one of the main comments I get is, I want to write children's books too. And to that, there's one thing I have to say. Great. The world needs more stories. Stories are the beginning of imagination, and imagination is the beginning of change. And we could all do with a little bit more change in our lives. Before we get started, there's a couple of things that I do want to say and clarify. Firstly, I am not an expert, but I am experienced in self-publishing, and that's what I'm here to talk to you about today. Is my way the only way to get published? No. Is it the best way to get published? No. Is it the worst way to get published? No. It's just one way. And the same thing applies to my methods. You may watch this video and think, this doesn't make sense, this isn't for me. That doesn't mean that you're wrong or I'm wrong. It's just the way I write a book, and it's the way that I get a product. You may need to change things. It might need to be completely different for you, and that's okay as well. The next is that this process can be daunting. And my answer to that is research. Find resources. I hope that this video provides a great resource for you. And I hope the resources that I use you find valuable as well. And I will be definitely sharing with you that key resource later on in this video. And finally, a key point I want to say is take feedback on, but don't let it discourage you. People are going to come up and say, why do you want to be an author? Why do you want to write a children's book? There's 100 children's books out in the world. And yeah, there is, but there's actually more than that. But do they have your unique perspective? Does it have your unique experience? Don't be discouraged by any naysayers around you. Okay, so now that that's done, we need to get to the first question you need to ask yourself. Do you want to go with a publisher, or do you want to be self-published? For me, going through a publisher is something that I do not have experience in, so it's not what I'm going to be talking about much today. The small experience I do have is that it seems that you need to find a literary agent to represent you and to pitch your book to the large-scale publishing houses. They're also the people that are going to help you with the contract, which, you want someone in the industry that knows all the ins and outs of creating a contract, so it totally makes sense. But literary agents are just as hard to reach out to as a publisher. Some of them ask for you to send an email pitching this book to you in manuscript form, and then if they get back to you within 6 weeks, they're interested. If they don't get back to you, then they're not. Some literary agents choose to have 1 month of a year where they open their inbox to all submissions, and then they'll close it and go through what they've got, and then that will be their next year's focus. I did do a little bit of research and found some literary agents just through Google and Instagram, and that's the route you want to take. That's where I think you begin. I did notice that a couple of literary agents did have a box asking if you are approaching other literary agents in this time. I don't think they really like that. So this process is longer. I don't deal well with long processes. And this is where I realized self-publishing was for me. But if going with a large publishing house is for you, a lot of the time the publishers may just want that manuscript first. So check in with your literary agent or check in with the publisher before you go finding an artist or illustrating yourself or paying an artist, because sometimes publishers will use in-house artists from their own catalogue. Sometimes they will like you to bring your own artist or your own artwork. But once again, that is dependent on the unique situation. And I think that's all I've really got to say on that. And the other option is being self-published. And this is what I did and what this video is going to be talking about. A lot of research and self-funding costs goes into being self-published. Obviously, that first batch of books needs to come out of your account, yourself, but you get to choose that volume that you want to print. You could print 10 books, you could print 100 books, you could print 1,000 books. That's really on you. So you can still work your budget in on this project. And I found in my research, this is where I'm talking about that resource. I found this PDF resource that helped me with the hard technical stuff. It was a absolute game changer, and I'm going to tell it to you right now. I found it over on Etsy by an artist called Tanika J Illustrates. That's her shop name, and is all her social media handles as well. Now, this book gives you everything. So it's in PDF form. You can print it, which I think is fantastic because I am a physical space person. And this resource goes so much more in depth than what my video does. It even talks about taking photos of your product, of advertising it, where you're going to sell it. It's literally from a baby idea in your brain to the finished product in your customer's hands. I've added a screenshot of what the contents are along with what the title looks like. This has been, without a doubt, the most valuable thing that has helped me in getting my book out. I genuinely believe without this resource, my books would not exist. I'm also not making a cut or a commission on this PDF. It is a genuine truth. All right, now let's get into it. How do I write a story? I begin with something called a brain dump. Now, I know that term isn't unique, and it's exactly that. You need to dump everything out of your brain that is in relation to this project. It could be in mind map form, it could be pictures, it could be dot points, it could be complete sentences. Just write them all down. Every little idea that you have inside your head about this project, write it down. It's all important. And all these ideas that are happening and swirling during your inspired and motivated time are going to be the supports and the structures and the roadmap for when that motivation wanes or you're feeling a little bit overwhelmed or daunting. Once that brain dump is down and it's all on a piece of paper or on a document on your computer, you should be able to look at all those dot points and all those notes and tell yourself in one sentence what your book is about. So for example, when I spoke before about My Brain is a Race Car, in one sentence, it is about understanding and accommodating for a neurodivergent brain. It's that simple. It shouldn't be more. And once again, that is your reference point whenever you're feeling like you've lost your way or you're not sure. What is the story that you're trying to tell? What is it that you want to share with the world? So now we've got all our ideas out and we've got a one-word sentence about what this story is about. We need to decide, who are we writing for? Who is our ideal reader? Think about their age. Think about what they might be interested in. What would they be experiencing in life? For me, my ideal reader is myself and my daughters, sitting around 4 to 7 years old, who are neurodivergent or have friends who are neurodivergent, and the carers or parents who love to read a story in evening story time. I call my books conversation openers, because what I want to do is I want this story to be read and then kind of like that adult-child conversation about what that meaning is in my book and what does it mean to them. And like I just mentioned, I write for them. I write in the same way I would talk to my ideal reader. I think about the words that I use. Using over-elaborated words are not going to land with a 4-year-old. They're going to ask, what does that word mean? Or they're just going to disengage from the story because it's not capturing their attention. The same with the story length. A toddler is not going to sit through a 70-page story, nor is a young child going to enjoy a storybook that's got 10 sentences on one page with one tiny little picture. They're going to want 1 to 2 sentences and this story-enhancing artwork accompanying it to invoke that imagination. The same consideration needs to be applied to older readers. If it's a lot of pictures with only a little bit of words, they're going to smash through this book so fast and not be able to connect with it properly. So making sure that the picture and word ratio is right for the age that you're going for. And finally, for children's books, I ask myself, do I want it rhyming? For me, as a parent, when I am sitting and I'm reading a book to my girls, I love books that rhyme. It gets me in this groove, it gets me in this flow. It seems to, that alliteration of noises seems to really capture my daughter's attention more. And so I try and make my books rhyme. It can be tricky, and I do use this website called Rhyme Zone where I can put a word in, see what words rhyme with it, might need to change the word around or the sentence around and get it. So sometimes it can take a little bit longer, but I find the impact is worth it. Now, laying out your manuscript, I think, is a really great thing to do. Some people do call it storyboards. This all seems to happen in my head while I'm writing the book. So I'll write 1 to 2 lines for a page, and then I will double return and get away. So I know that that is 1 page. And then what I'll do is I'll group pages together that I feel need to match each other, or the artwork is going to be related to each other. Physically laying this out as a storyboard, I think, would be a very powerful thing to do. I work in too much of a fever rush flurry for me to have time to do that, but I have seen other people do it, and it looks so impactful, and it really, once again, gives you that map, that roadmap to help you along when you might be feeling like you're losing your way. All right, so now there is a draft manuscript that exists in this world. First thing we need to do, edit and proofread. Proofreading is key, and I think some fresh eyes are best, because when we are reading our story, we're going to make up for the parts that might be missing a word or a wrongly spelled letter, because we know how the story is supposed to flow. And when fresh eyes read it, they read it in a complete new organic focus. So multiple people I recommend as well. So get those trusted around you. Anyone who's good at English would be great. I don't have a really great handle on the English language with punctuation and spelling and grammar. So getting these proofreaders on board is absolutely essential and a goldmine for me. Okay, now I need you to stop for 1 second and congratulate yourself. This is a huge achievement. You have a manuscript that's been proofread and edited and refined, and here you are with this story that's ready for the world. What next? The first thing you need to do is make that choice. Do you want to go with a publishing company, or are you wanting to self-publish? And that's when you need to take those next steps and do the next research. If you are self-publishing, the first thing I want you to think about is your book size and your layout. And this is where you do need to refer to the site of who you want to self-publish through, see what their default sizes are, and what of those sizes matches in with your envisionment of how you want this book to look. I like a square book for a children's book, because when I hold them up, a rectangular book is top heavy and can kind of get a little bit wobbly on me, where a square book sits quite nice in my arm while I'm trying to show the pictures and read simultaneously to my daughters. I also need to decide if there is a specific place that I want the lettering to sit, and if I need to create that layout before sending it to an artist. For me, I do like to have my words kind of moving around from top to bottom. Some people might like them all on the bottom. And the artwork is going to be affected by, firstly, where the words are, secondly, the size of the words, and thirdly, the shape and the size of the page. So make those decisions first. Look to that publishing website on what the book sizes are. It will give page dimensions, which will be great for you, because then you can start setting up your file in the correct dimensions from the beginning and not be going back and forth like I did many times. And when you are putting these words on the page, you need to think about the font. You need to have a look at fonts that are free for public use or for anyone to use. And there are others that you must pay to use. There are some that you can pay to use, but you can't use it for commercial setting. Or you can write your own font. There is websites where you can print off a sheet of paper, write your letters on there, scan it, upload, and then you can actually get a font in your own handwriting. And that's what I did for my books. So my books are actually written in my handwriting. You also need to think about, with your font, readability. You don't want font that is hard to read. It needs to be clear to read, especially for those young eyes, and especially for parents that are kind of holding the book off to the side and reading side eye so the kids can look at the pictures at the same time. Also, is the font matching the mood of the story? You don't want a story that's about something really serious or like a scary story, but it's written in this really curly handwriting that's got love hearts and flowers dotting the eyes. It'll just take away from that impact. It's creating that full cohesive story experience. So who do I print through? I actually print through 2. I print through Amazon and also an independent publisher. And I just want to give you a little bit of pros and cons on both of these experiences. These are my experiences and my pros and cons. Once again, people might feel different, but this is mine. Firstly, the positives of printing through Amazon. It is a really, really easy step-by-step PDF upload. You just need your standard PDF, and the process is really strongly guided to you, which is great. You can order author copies through Amazon, which means that you can order them at wholesale prices where you can then go retail them in a shop or sell them at a market and make a profit for yourself to make it worth your while. Amazon is print on demand, so that is really great because you don't need to outlay a huge financial cost to get a batch of books printed. Someone orders the book, they print the book, they ship the book. They do it all for you, which is really handy. And because they print on demand and they have print locations all over the world, the international shipping is so fast. So someone can order a book in Canada, I'm sitting here in Australia, but they've ordered from Amazon. It's going to get to them within 3 days. Now, the negatives that I found on printing with Amazon. There's no volume discount for large orders, particularly if you want to do author copies. It's just kind of like a set price and you've just got to order X amount of that price and then that's what you're getting. And when my books are packaged or shipped, they are not done with the love that I love to give. It is a book in a padded mailer and it is sent to the customer. Where when I ship my books, I love to do this full little journey of wrapping them in the old brown paper that old bookshops used to do and adding some little mindful activities in there as well as like a little information pack about me and all that sort of stuff. And I don't have the opportunity to do that with Amazon. It also exposes my books to people who have not connected with me first, so they might not truly understand what my book is about, and then that opens me up to maybe getting some negative reviews. And I have had a couple that have really broke my heart, to be honest, because these are such raw and personal stories that I am sharing with the world, and those reviews really cut deep. And not only that, I can't respond or rectify any negative reviews. They are just there and I just need to accept that they exist and my book isn't for everyone and that's okay. The final thing is that you do lose a little bit of money in currency conversion, but I think that is well overrode with the fact that I am opened up to an international market. Now on to the positives and negatives of printing with an independent publisher. Starting with the positives, you do get discounts for volume orders. It may only be a few cents per book, but it does add up when you are ordering bigger volumes. And going on to the direct opposite of Amazon, I sell and post myself. So I do get to create this full holistic journey that the receiver gets this lovely little personalized package that really feels like it's been made from a genuine caring place. And also that the purchaser probably has come across me in some format on the internet and then has exposure to what my products are truly about and what it is that I'm creating. Next is the cost for a singular author copy is lower than what Amazon is charging, and that is before the volume discounts. That's just the price for a singular unit. I also found that I had more size options, more colour options, more printing options with a publisher rather than what I had with Amazon, but that was just my experience and what I was looking for again. Now, the negatives. So firstly, advertising is completely up to me, which is a little bit exhausting because I do regularly burn out and so my sales come in waves because I am not consistent and so therefore my sales are not consistent. If I don't advertise something, it's not going to sell because people don't know it exists. I also find that every batch I order has a couple of damaged ones in there and I have reached out to the publisher and said, hey, there's a couple of broken books in here and I kind of got crickets back. So I think it's just one of those things that you just need to wear the cost, unfortunately. For the ones that are damaged beyond repair, I give them to my girls to do what they will with them. And then the other books that have flaws that no one would notice but are enough for me to notice, I donate to local school libraries. A big difference between shipping times and postage time is that orders take 2 weeks or so to receive from you submitting a print request to it getting to you. That is also dependent on where you live. I am quite regional, so our delivery driver comes down once a week, so that would also affect my shipping time as well. And finally, even though it is worth buying bulk, because the more you buy, that more discount you get, it is a financial outlay. So if you want to buy, a few hundred books, a couple of hundred books, you're going to be paying over $1,000 to get those books pending your page number, pending if you're going color or black and white, pending if it's hardcover or paperback. There's so many factors that come into that as well. Right, now the art for the children's book. Luckily for me, I am an artist first and a author second, so I illustrate the books myself. And I know that this is probably the biggest hurdle for people when they are trying to write and publish their own children's book, is getting the art if they can't create it themselves. So even though I don't have experience in this part either, there is just a couple of points that I would like to make that might help you along that direction, but always research. To start, you need to work out what your budget is and pay your artists. I feel everyone always has a friend or a family member who is an artist, and everyone kind of just can lean on them just that little too much sometimes. So work out what your budget is and pay your artist. I want to just jump ahead to one point, and don't approach an artist until your manuscript is finished and laid out. There's nothing more deflating than being approached for a project and you're going, yes, you're immediately inspired and you're like, yes, let's get started. And they're like, oh, I haven't even wrote it yet. And you're like, oh, okay. And also for yourself too, there might be so much that might change in your manuscript from before you've wrote it to submitting it to the artist. The main character might begin as a bear and it might end as a duck. So all that concept art will be irrelevant now. You also need to decide how you want this artist to be involved. Are you going to pay them outright at a higher premium for the full rights to the artwork? Or are you wanting maybe to negotiate a lower premium, but then they'll receive commissions on the book sale? Look into contracts. You can Google about contracts and really come to a good agreement with your artist. Now, which artist and how do you find them? Don't just go to that family member or that friend and say, hey, I want you to create art in this way when they draw art in that way, and you just go to them because you know them. As lovely as that is, it's just going to create a lot of stress for the artist and probably a bit of disappointment for yourself as well, because it's not going to be a really strongly connected project. So you need to find an artist whose art style, their natural style, the way they portfolio just naturally sits, you look at and go, I love everything. It doesn't matter what they drew, I would love it. And that's the right artist for you. Also taking into account the budget that you have. And where can you find artists? Everywhere. Instagram is the artist's social media platform, and there's plenty of hashtags to Google. Hashtag digital artist, hashtag watercolor artist, hashtag illustrator, hashtag children's book illustrator. Have a look around and see what you can find. Obviously, aspiring ones are going to charge a lower premium than an established one, and that's up for you to work out. So now you have written your manuscript, you have laid out your pages, you have amazing art, and you've combined the art and words into a file. What next? It's time to print. Yay! So when I printed through the independent publisher, I found it really, really overwhelming. They have a very specific software, a very specific format in how they want to receive the files, which I found really daunting and overwhelming. I just remember the word 2007 being in the type of PDF that it needed to be. And that's where I turned back to that amazing resource where I literally printed it and ticked off the sentences step by step. Biggest shout out to Tanika J for creating this resource, because I have said it before, I'll say it again, and I'll say it until I have no breath left in my body. My books would not exist without this resource. To print through Amazon is through their KDP website, which stands for Kindle Direct Publishing. It is really, really straightforward. There is no specialist software required. Uploads and approvals happen really quick because a lot of it is automated, and you even get a preview on if there's anything sitting outside the bleed lines and therefore going to get refused. You also have the option of uploading it as an ebook, which will create a whole different layout. So that is very thin, long rectangular shape. So you will need to reformat for that. But you can upload as an ebook, which gives a whole new different market an opportunity to engage with your product. The only thing that I do want to say is if you do upload an ebook, Amazon does demand that it is a 1 month exclusivity with them or a 3 month exclusivity with them. There is a certain time that it needs to only be as an ebook available only on Amazon. Okay, and finally, I have one more thing to say. Believe in yourself. Don't fall into the thought trap that you can't or you're not an author. Anybody can be an author. Authors are story writers, and stories come from experience, and we are all experiencing things every day. Don't worry about cliquey forums of literary perfectionists or people who are like, oh, there's so many books like this that already exist in the world. Just focus on you. Okay, thank you. Thank you so much for watching this video, and if you would like to download any of my resources or book a workshop or a presentation with me, just head over to my website www.nellharris.com and reach out to me. I'd love to hear from you.